A crash can hurt more than the body. In 1962, Sterling Moss was driving a Lotus at Goodwood and inexplicably crashed into the bank on the outside of a bend. He was critically injured. It was a month before he was fully conscious and many more before he drove again. And then he realized that something about him had changed.